Far back in the past, the ancient civilization created artificial intelligence on Mars and went to colonize the Earth. In 2023, the astronauts for the first time landed on the red planet and learned that they are weighted 1,000,000 years by the artificial intelligence created in the past, which problem to change DNA of people and to create a new advanced civilization. My name is Kostya, not Mauve, and this cinema fox I saw your person millions of years. I long waited for you. 1967, when landing to the Earth after performance of flight, perishes the Soviet ship, the Union 1, with the astronaut Vladimir Komarovim on board many years later. Under the leadership of the Swedish billionaire Meyer, the expedition to Mars is prepared, and in 10 months the crew of Ulysses' ship reaches the red planet. The captain tells team that he got permission to landing and asks about their ship by the name of Irene, to check everything that is required for soft landing. At this time, Meyer tells that this flight prepared 4 years, having given for it almost all the money. But alas, the American company Green was ahead of them, having landed 2 weeks ago. The problem is that the Earth does not get from the American crew news, crom of one video in which they ask not to arrive to Mars. Among crew members, the dispute erupts, but the captain declares that landing anyway will take place, and people disperse on the cabins before landing. There are 30 minutes, and Iran begins preparation, but there is unforeseen. The ship does not separate from the system of the carrier that threatens with death of all crew. Exit only one to make uncoupling manually. The commander leaves in space and hardly releases fastening, but here the shuttle enters the atmosphere of Mars and the captain rejects to outer space, and the shuttle practically falls to Mars, as in a system there was a mistake. What energy is disconnected from? And now it will be enough only for manual landing, and artificial intelligence of Irene goes to sleep mode, and astronauts nevertheless fall by Mars. Everything turned out, but fuel came to an end, and Iran is not started. And without onboard computer and the biolife support system, they will stretch no more day. Alexandra mourns the died husband when she sees in a window a figure in a spacesuit. After performing diagnostics of the ship, it becomes clear that for landing too much fuel was spent, and now the ship will not be able back to rise by an orbit. Only one to wait for an exit when solar batteries soil generators. But on a surface, a storm, and on it 2 days, which they just do not have, will be necessary. Here, Simone reminds of the American ship Zeta-1, which was ahead of them for 2 weeks. It obviously broke, but there, most likely, were batteries. The off-roader sets off while remain by the ship try to start a system, and the engineer Basil remembers that, and there is a function of conservation of energy. He carries out reset, but Iran is not started. At this time, the off-roader finds fragments of the American ship, and one survived solar panel, but crews it is not visible anywhere. Astronauts go to a way back, but notice the unconscious person in a spacesuit. And though by their ship there is not enough oxygen, Jana insists on its transportation. Right there, the black box from the lost ship of Americans lies. The team comes to the ship, but Jan refuses to let in them inside, saying that 4 survivors it is better than 8 corpses, so it will not open a door. Alessandra tries to influence the man when are found the astronaut, wakes up and joins in the same moment, and Irene and opens doors. Examines found a time later, but he knows nothing about the American crew as he is Vladimir Komarovim, the Soviet astronaut, been born in 1927 in Moscow and executing the order of the government of the USSR. He does not know how he got here, but does not intend to open secrets. Mosquitoes. It is sure to answer the questions corresponding to its time that causes the assumptions that it has a post-traumatic, stressful frustration. Astronauts send request for the Earth and receive the answer from the American corporation Xeon that in their mission, foxes had no Russians. Crew of the ship tries to comprehend the message, as could mosquitoes, having died in 1967, to appear on Mars so many years later. It is a traveler in time, or the alien to the psychologist charge one to ask Komarovo, and that admits that he is hungry. Jana leaves behind food while the others try to understand that nevertheless occurred, and Basil suggests that mosquitoes waited for them. At this time, Vladimir eats, the food brought by Jana when the woman admits that he died 50 years ago and his family buried him long ago, Mosquitoes accepts it quite quietly. Meanwhile, the condition of the ship, though, reached stability unreliably. Engines do not work, and there is no fuel, therefore it is impossible to depart. The crew continues to watch Komarovo, but he behaves absolutely quietly, yet does not disappear somewhere. Simone searches the ship, but it does not yield results. And here people find loss of its spacesuit. Part of crew goes on a thermal trace which traces Irene the group at the head. Simon goes out of the off-roader and continues away on foot. When Alessandra reports that analyses of Komarovo showed existence in its DNA, 3 spirals it not the person, and here they catch up Komarovo, which leads them to unclear construction on which the small stone pyramid lies. Also says to Jana that Mars waited for them already long ago. At this time, Goldstein, well to the founder of Xeon Corporation, whose ship arrived by the first to Mars, report about the person found on the red planet who could not get there. So, it was created on the place. But only the artificial intelligence can survive so long time on the hostile person at the planet, and it means that it needs to be studied. Meanwhile, cannot explain mosquitoes how opened a door and it appeared where it was found. Irene does the analysis of construction. Also, it turns out that it is identical to terrestrial structures of ancient civilizations. So, or somebody was inspired a human civilization, or people borrowed these elements, newcomers, the crew of the ship more often thinks. Whether it will manage to them to come back home when notice landing 2 ships of Goldstein? Soon the Captain Gemma, who promises to help them to return on the Earth, contacts. But Meyer does not trust Galt to Matt and advises to hide Komarovo from competitors. Jana brings to Komarovo a uniform, that it did not differ from crew when guests come, and he asks to trust in it. Soon on the ship comes to them 2 soldiers, Edward and Adam, who are armed and behave quite aggressively. Edward demands that they gave a black box of the ship Z1, and without having heard consent, to order to the workmate to search the ship. Meyer gives the found black box, and they leave. Meanwhile, the chemist Eve reports that the stone found on Mars consists of alloy which on the Earth does not exist. But it is known for ancient for a source and then was called nut and a lock metal. Atlantis and crom of copper of zinc, nickel and iron contains 3 DNA as at Komarovo. Meyer warns that if learns about it Goldstein, it will take away the astronaut. The crew is divided into those who are ready to exchange it for fuel and those who are ready to remain here. But to learn the truth, Jana invites Vladimir in the cabin and asks permission to apply hypnosis. He resolves, and the psychologist gets to work. The others listen to a conversation on broadcasting, but mosquitoes to tell only about the last minutes by the ship the Union before death. At this time to the ship there arrives Gemma and Alan, who apologize for action of military and are ready to help to correct all breakages. Jana remembers a conversation with Komarovo, which laments the future of the Earth and irresponsible behavior of mankind. And meanwhile, it becomes clear that the billionaire Meyer, not just like that planned flight 4 years ago, the Mars rover sent on the Earth of a photo, found Stella. Also admits that they found a stone from unknown DNA. Gemma explains that this system of storage of information which can be rewritten, having heard these words, Irene joins, and to decipher the message on a stone, it is a number sequence. At this time, coward Jan lifts a revolt. It does not trust Meyer, who warned against a Zelian. And now Americans came to the rescue, and their head appears hid the flight purpose, and he is ready to come over to the side of a Goldstein, which is ready for everything to overcome the fatal disease. Later, the engineer of Brazil tells Meyer that mosquitoes, it is the same program as found a stone, but the main thing he deciphered the copy of a black box Z1, and there it is visible that oxygen by the ship was disconnected while one of Americans struck Komarovo. That is it was, and there it started Irene when ascended to their ship. After the conversation Meyer shows to Jana, received 4 years ago by photos from Mars, having deciphered which. They saw Jana's face, therefore it also took her in an expedition. The woman is disappointed. Meyer played with all. Suddenly she sees herself in the house of the father, where Mosquito says to her that it is communication between Mars and the Earth. He waited for its several 1,000 mosquitoes to prepare it for adoption of the difficult decision and calls coordinates on Mars, where Jana on the Earth has to go at this time, the scientists report Goldstein. Well, mosquitoes are computer equivalent, and it, the biological car, they are ready to move his brain to a body of Komarovo, but do not give a guarantee of preservation of his personality. But Goldstein, it is ready for any risk, if only to get rid of a fatal disease. Meanwhile, Jana leaves the ship, despite Simon's protests. At this time, technicians Alan, Sandra test the engine and find out that access to it is blocked, and Irene suddenly begins to answer with jokes absolutely unusual for the car. It becomes clear that it reprogrammed itself. Its interface and logic changes, and she refuses to answer who or that induced her to do. This is the engineer Basil finds, as the system becomes more similar to a brain. Irene admits that she evolves. Meanwhile, Jana finds a stone pyramid, and Simone forces to Jam to accompany it in search of Jana. Jan finds her absence and, having contacted a lemon, receives the order of nobody to let inside, and just at this time the American military demanding to give them Komarovo approach. Yang is ready to open an entrance, but other team acts against Meyer. Basil asks to send the message Goldsteiny in hope that he is more reasonable than his people. But Irene blocked communication with the Earth. The engineer understands that it is necessary to take radical measures, and Jan nevertheless opens a door and military enters inside. Basil begins Irene's reset when Americans find Komarovo, but here lighting dies away and the astronaut disappears, and Jana, having stumbled, falls from the hill. She recovers, but finds out that her leg got stuck between stones and she does not manage to come down most. At this time, the military enraged demands crew to explain where he got to mosquitoes. He begins to beat people, demanding to call the captain Jana, having despaired, shouts, really her purpose to die in a hole on Mars, but it is found Simone and Alessandro's jam. The storm which is remarkably moving on them military are going to leave the ship Ulysses. Having left people, it is in danger, but suddenly begins to blink light, and appeared mosquitoes ask to take away it on Simone's Earth. Jam and Jana together go to the places called Komarovo. They find an entrance to the underground bunker very similar to tombs to a grief understand. The psychologist feels where it is necessary to go and leads couple, and soon they find the real water, but it not that wanted to show mosquitoes on the Earth. Goldstein at this time tells the nurse a story of studying Mars. People looked for little green men there, but everything is much simpler. He tells a story about a faithful dog of Hachiko, and to compare to it Komarovo, which somebody created 1,000,000 years ago. I left it on Mars, where he truly till today waited for the owner. At this time on Mars, the astronauts find a wall from human bones and understand that they are not the first people on this planet. And not the Earth does not colonize Mars, and Martians arrived on the Earth having exhausted resources of the Red Planet. By the ship, Ulysses inflames the tragedy. Coward Jan grabs a gun, intending to get by all means on the ship of Americans to return on the Earth and to shoot at Komarovo. Jana immediately falls, runs away from terrible pain from Jam. Alessandra tries to help Komarovo and Simone Jana, but the Russian astronaut dies, and Jana ceases to breathe too. And then Simone takes off a helmet and, being surprised to existence in an air cave, performs its CPR. The girl recovers. Jam goes towards the ship at Lisa when report to her on death of Komarovo, and about storm approach Mirzon secretly leaves on search of members of the crew because Americans refuse to take away the team of the billionaire on the Earth. At this time, the regained consciousness, Jana sees the inflaming light in the bunker and leads Simon, having come to light the astronaut, see before themselves a figure in a spacesuit and learn Komarovo. Meyer finds an entrance to the bunker and, going on light, catches up with Simon and Jana. He is surprised to presence of live Komarovo, which suddenly says to them that in this place everything very long time ago ended. People understand that it is the North Pole of Mars, but how they got here? Mosquitoes tell that once this planet was inhabited by a look, which died out because went astray, and it were people. The group of survivors lodged in this place, but killed each other when resources ended. The others departed on the Earth. Platon called them Atlases. Komarov continues to say that he waited 1,000 for Jana, who incorporated quality of both branches, human and artificial intelligence of Mars, and only she can save people from herself. She needs to solve whether people two chances deserve. The conversation interrupts military, who it intends to take away the psychologist on the Earth. The American makes weapon on astronauts from Jana, asks for help of Komarovo. Suddenly, military begin to choke and falls on return to the ship. Simone orders to get ready for a trip. At this time, Gemma from the ship of Azelian tries to call the assistants, but none of them answer. And then she decides to fly to the Earth. To one crew, the Fox goes to her ship, trying to contact the woman, reporting to her about death of military. But she does not want to answer. And then Meyer begins to speak, remembering their last relations. Also admits that it is not better than a Goldstein, because it is ready for everything that his name remained in the history, even on treachery of team. But it not such, she will not be able to live, knowing that it ruined people. And here the voice of Gemma, who asks them to hurry, is distributed. Goldstein heard that Jam decided to take away on the Earth crew of the ship from Foxes and blocked the ship control panel for 2. Before takeoff, the people in the ship prepare for death, and Jana asks Mars what she has to make. In the head, and the woman rushes everything that she saw and heard on the red planet and power of thought. She removes blocking from the control panel, but suddenly before the ship, there is an armed military who intends to damage the engine by means of weapon. Simone is going to leave to stop the madman, but Jana is ahead of him. She takes aim at the American, but reports that he will be killed by Mars. The military falls. The last seconds before takeoff from Jana are reckoned, having understood what does not manage to return anymore. Farewell with crew. Recognizing Simone in love, the ship takes off, and suddenly Meyer pays attention that on the North Pole of Mars darkly, and it means that they could not be there some minutes ago, but they really were on the North Pole of Mars, but far back in the past when the red planet was still suitable for life. At this time, Goldstein will report on return of the ship, and he, raving with fury, declares that he will fly to Mars. One season on, it comes to an end. Do not forget to put likes and write to comments how to you these series. And with you, there was more Fox. We'll meet very soon.